Fáilte everyone, you are very welcome to this, another edition of Mind Your Precious Self. It's Misha, Dr. Karen Nick-Vard. My name is Karen Ward, and I'm delighted to be with you here for a subject very dear to my heart and very seasonal. And it's how to survive the festive season. Now, this might be a topic that surprises you because you could be thinking, really? Survive? Surely the festive season is a time of joy, a time of happiness, a time of celebration, and indeed it is. And some of you might be surprised that I'm using the words festive season as opposed to Christmas. And the reason for that is at this time of the year, the end of December, many people celebrate many things. For you, it could be winter solstice. It might be Yule. It could be Christmas. It might be the calendar New Year, or it could be Hanukkah, or it could be any other festival, depending on your background, where you come from, and what resonates close to your heart. However, I'm sure you'll agree with me that most of us experience a break in work, a holiday, if you will. Schools close, colleges close, many businesses take a couple of days off. So it is a unique time in our year when most of us, and I wave a flag out there for those who are in retail and those who are in the hospitality sector, who might be very busy at this time, that there is a sense of a stop and a hibernation. And if you think about it, during the summer holidays, we all take time off at different times. So this end of December is unique in that a majority of people take a holiday, a celebration, a rest, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it is meant to be a time of joy, a time of love, a time of celebration. And yet so often it can be, are you overjoyed or are you overwhelmed? Because sometimes those old traditions we celebrate mean that one or two people bear the brunt of all of this hospitality and festivity, while the rest of us receive gratefully, and there may be a sense of what was that all about? And what you might not realize, and I have my psychotherapist hat on here, is what often happens that any emotion you're feeling at this time of the year tends to be magnified because it's a very intense period with social interaction heightened, shall we say. So that means if you're feeling joy and happiness, you'll feel overjoyed and a huge sense of happiness. But it equally means that if you're feeling a little bit sad or lonely or feeling depressed, that too can be magnified. Therefore, I am here to offer you tried and trusted holistic ways, mind, body and soul, to survive, more than survive, to thrive, to celebrate this festive season in whichever way suits you best. And it's still early days, and whether you have your decorations up or not, or whether you subscribe to that, possibly you are thinking about present giving or gift giving, whatever you refer to it as. And this can be a huge source of angst and indeed the overwhelm I mentioned. Because it might have been when you were in the family, you had a small, maybe 4 or 5 siblings, mummy and daddy, and there were presents, and that was great. And now those 4 or 5 siblings are with partners and with their children, and you get the idea. So the family is suddenly extended. And what are you to do? Buy presents for all of these people? And of course, we live in a time where we're really conscious of those around the world who have less than us. And we're now much more ecologically and environmentally aware. So therefore, you might think, what can we do to make this more pleasant and sustainable? Well, here's a few ideas. On one side of my family, we decided to do the Secret Santa, or the Kris Kringle as it's known over in the Eastern European countries. Therefore, everybody's name goes into a hat. You pull out one name and you buy a present for that person in secret. So you get to be Secret Santa. And in this particular side, my husband's side of the family, we had a limit. It had to be under €10 and it had to be something funny, something to do with the person you were buying it for. And of course, when all the presents were given out and a good laugh was had on Christmas morning, then there began the wild guessing games as to who you thought had given you the present. So there was a sense of giving and receiving. There was a good laugh, but also there was a little bit of a game involved in it. And the older members in the family particularly enjoyed that. Over on my side of the family, we decided that the presents would be for the children only. And in my case, there's 5 wonderful children there. And then the rest of us would receive a token as a family. One of my sisters is very creative and she and her little ones craft. I mean, over the years, we've had fancy Christmas wreaths, fancy Christmas decorations. We've had poinsettias in lovely tubs that were hand painted. You get the idea. And we each enjoy coming up with something original. There's been fancy hampers, you get the idea. But it meant that there was not that huge, oh my gosh, where am I going to get the time and the money, of course, to buy presents that people may not even want. You know the classic, oh, thank you. Yeah, it's what I've always wanted. And you know by their face that it wasn't. Therefore, if you are buying presents for anyone, make sure you buy them something that they will like, not something that you think they may like. And I'll hold my hand up as a pank, professional auntie no kids. And I love the idea of giving my nieces and nephews some actual item present. But I had to bow to what they really wanted was a few bob for their back pocket to go out and spend it on whatever they wanted. Even though I'm not a big giving them money and vouchers, but they wanted it. And that's what it was all about. I was the best auntie in the world. I hope that's given you a couple of ideas there. Maybe one final one. And I'm speaking from Dublin, which is where I live. But there's nothing worse than swanning up Grafton Street with your list and realising, oh, I was meant to get something down in Henry Street and I was there 20 minutes ago and it's going to take me so long to get back there. Therefore, the list has to be a proper list, not just, I'm going to get this for Joe, but where can I get it? And map your route on the list. So it's worth having a nice cup of tea, cup of coffee at home, and then planning your day, swanning around town, or a particular shopping centre or mall, as it might be called where you are. And then it's an enjoyable thing. And maybe you do it with somebody. I know a very clever woman, and she pays one of her nephews to do her shopping for her. Now, this young man, he loves shopping. He's a retail therapist, and he loves the extra few bob she gives him. He swans around. He's on his phone. He knows where everything is. He arrives back to her. He has it all. He even wraps them for her, and she gives him a couple of bob, and he goes out with the friends that night. So be inventive and creative. Now, I'm moving from the present buying to actually the big day itself. In my family, myself and my husband celebrate winter solstice, and that is the return of the light. And we get up early in the morning and we drive off to Newgrange, that beautiful sacred site. It's about 40 minutes from where we live. There's a huge gathering of people, depending on the year that's in it. And then the prized 25 get inside when, on a beautiful dawn, the sun will shine, snake up the passageway to illuminate this beautiful womb-shaped monument on the earth. And then afterwards, what a lot of people don't realise is when the 25 come out, then there's a rota system, and anybody of those 200, 300 people, depending on the restrictions arrive in, they can get in to see this beautiful illumination. It's really, really special. But there's an air of festivity, there's celebration, there's usually singing, chanting, drumming, bit of dancing, really joyous celebration. And then inevitably a whole gang drive back to the Hill of Tara, and there's a fancy kind of breakfast brunch we have, share, we go up to that hill. So it's a wonderful day of celebration. We bring it back into Smithfield Square here in Dublin City, and then inevitably there's something online we do. Wonderful day of celebration, and quite an active one. So for us, Christmas Day itself, even though we were both brought up Catholics, is very much about family and particularly our elders. One of us has an elderly mum who is very much into Christmas, and she gathers all her children around her and the grandchildren on Christmas morning, and there are drinks, there's a little bit of nibbles, and then we all scatter to the four winds to do whatever for the rest of the day. Now, I'm talking about both families here and extended family. And traditionally in Ireland anyway, it was usually the mother who cooked the Christmas dinner. I have known women to cook dinner for 25 people. Now that's a hell of a task. Even somebody who's used to cooking and likes cooking. And I think we have evolved to a stage where so many of us love the mehel style, as it's called in Ireland. Now, mehel is an Irish Gaelic word for communities coming together. So therefore, one part of the family could make the starter, somebody else preps the veg, somebody else does the turkey, somebody does the ham. There might be a vegetarian or a vegan option. Somebody does the Christmas cake and then the pudding. And that means there's a lovely blending of traditions. Somebody else might bring the drinks. You get the idea. And there might be volunteers to do the washing up afterwards. It just takes the pressure off one person. And it is a lovely way to come together. However, I'm very aware that there are perhaps the woman, usually the one who cooked before, might not want to let go of the tradition of bringing her family around and providing the hospitality. So there might need to be a little bit of, shall we say, diplomatic persuasion so that mum gets the break. And, maybe she does cook the turkey, if that's what you have in your family, the goose, whatever it might be. And then everybody else provides the trimming. So she's allowed to have her status as she's had all the years, but she may not be physically up to it in the same way as before. If in your house you are the one who's doing the shopping, or you have a say in the shopping, remember, it is one day. I'm sure we've all been in the position where we're in the supermarkets and we're looking in people's trolleys, and you would swear they were buying for a time where the shops are going to be closed for a week. The show's for one day. And this is a celebration for one day. So whether it's Hanukkah in the Jewish faith and they have a particular food, or maybe the Muslim tradition with Eid, there's particular foods that are very celebrated at that time. A bit like in America, where they have their Thanksgiving food is a particular type of meal. Buy for 3 days and, enjoy the chocolates, the pudding, the whatever it is. But make sure you pull on your boots, put on your coat, and you get out for the walk. And if you buy for a week, you'll eat for a week and you'll drink for a week. Whereas if you buy a limited amount, then when it's gone, it's gone. And then you go back to normal eating, and your system will so thank you for it. There's nothing worse than waking up on the morning after the big day, whatever it is. It might be some sort of party, office party, and you've got a raging hangover. You can't even think straight. So moderation with treats would be very much what I would recommend. And it's really coming from that, as I said, holistic way of being. So you're looking after your body, you're using your mind in the best way possible, and you're not your feelings run away with you, as in, I must, I should, oh, it doesn't matter about my healthy eating now because it's this festival and I'm going to eat rings around me. Yes, for one day. But after that, you'll notice your body talking to you saying, no. And of course, this brings me on to the feelings around any of these festivals, the end of the year. And I mentioned before that a lot of us, depending on our work or our studies, we have a break at this time, which means that inevitably there's a big build-up. There might be exams or there might be reports or projects to be done, boom, to stop for the few days or the week. So that can mean that you're careering into whatever festivity absolutely exhausted or wired. And then, as is the case when people join together, particularly extended family, there can be, shall I diplomatically say, certain situations that evolve. For example, Granny asks Mary why she isn't married. Now, Mary might be part of the lesbian community and she hasn't come out to her family. And the last thing she needs is to be reminded, you get the idea. It could be, Joe, why don't you cut your hair? And he is sporting this gorgeous long hair in his man bun that he loves. Or it could be sibling rivalry rears its head, all of these things. Whereas if there was an anticipation, Granny's not going to change her ways, but maybe Mary can take her to one side and explain the situation. Maybe Granny will understand, which would be fantastic. Or maybe it's Joe decides to wear a beanie hat, whatever. In other words, anticipate regular, crunchy situations and ameliorate them in the best way possible. Because the last thing you want around a joyous meal is some row or some tension. You get the idea. Now, when we continue on the festive season to that gap between, if it is Christmas or winter solstice or Yule, there generally is a time of hibernation. Happy days. Who of us doesn't yearn for putting on the PJs and lolling around on the sofa? Maybe there's a fire or there's a warm, cozy house, some films, a couple of games, lots of sleep to catch up on. And that's great. And you might be yearning for that. But inevitably, after a few days, a bit of boredom is going to set in. And that's where you can organise to get out for charity walks or cycles or swims or whatever it might be. And it's a wonderful way to meet people, particularly at this time of the year and in the situation that we're in at the moment, where there can be interaction, but enjoying the glories of nature. It might be a bit blustery now, but... And then, of course, we come up to what I refer to as the calendar New Year, New Year's Eve. And it's extraordinary that we've got to the stage in our world where you must be happy, and you must be happy with your life at 12 o'clock on this particular day. Hello? And there seems to be a great onus, particularly in the younger folk. Not only must you be happy at this time, but you must be in a relationship that's working. And on the law of averages, that is not going to be the case. So again, give yourself a break. Arrange to go to a party with a group of friends, or celebrate in a way that's really meaningful to you. And don't be forced or cajoled into doing something that you don't want. I have a lovely anecdote. I have a very good friend, wonderful, wonderful Spanish woman. And one year, she didn't go back to Spain for the Christmas New Year. And she was in Dublin. And she had stocked up on films, a couple of treats to eat, and she was so looking forward to having a total chill out day. However, her friends and the people she worked with were, what? You can't be on your own on Christmas Day. And she said, well, it's fine. I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm not a Catholic, so I'm taking the day off. Oh my gosh, you can imagine what happened. There she was, looking forward to her day of rest, of chilling out, and she was bombarded with calls and phone calls and people dropping around because they felt bad she was on her own for Christmas. And she was, why doesn't everybody go away? I don't need this. And she came up with afterwards, she was watching the President, Michael D. Higgins, make a speech. And she was also watching that, that Christmas movie, Die Hard, with Bruce Willis. And she was sort of kicking herself. She didn't say to people, oh, I'm spending Christmas with Michael, or I'm spending Christmas with Bruce. And everybody would have said, oh, that's great. Once they knew in their world she was happy. And she could have had the whole day to herself as she wanted to. So if you are deciding that you want time out and you genuinely are looking forward to being there with the cat or the goldfish or whatever, you might use that little tip. Pick a particular film you're going to watch and say, oh yes, I'm spending Christmas with the Stone family, or whatever film you're watching. That's assuming that you do want to be on your own. Because the other thing is, if you don't, there could be other people out there who would relish the opportunity of having a mixum gatherum of folk to come together for a meal on the day. And then you can go off and do your own thing in the evening if you wish to. Surviving the festive season depends on you. What you eat, what you drink, how you socialise. Couple of drinks, 3 drinks, life and soul of the party, versus 7, 8, 9, 10 drinks and the next day you're toast, as they say. It also depends on making new traditions. Why do traditions have to be old ones? We can decide we're not going to that particular house, we're all coming over to this house. One person isn't making the meal, we're all going to spread it out. Let's, as a family, do a sea swim or walk a mile for some charity. There's so many great ideas out there. And you've heard me say the word diplomacy and diplomatic a few times. And again, when you are floating out these ideas to family members, particularly the older family members, you may need to be aware of possibly they might feel it's always been like this has to be the way, and gently drop in the idea of new ways of being. And I would say that particularly the case with any of you with young children, it's so much easier to host Christmas or whatever festivity it is with the children in their own home, with their own toys and with their cot or their cradle nearby, rather than having to uproot them, put them in the car and drive them to another place. So again, that can be the introduction of a gentle break in an old tradition when there are children in the family. May you thrive over this time. May you embrace, yes, there's long, dark nights, but if we're inside and we're warm and cozy, sleep. Catch up on all those books and films. Catch up on long conversations, be they on FaceTime or on the phone or whatever. And remember, for our ancestors, wintertime was about dreaming in the future. They recognized that, like the animals, it was time to cozy down and hibernate. If we were squirrels or bears, we would be in our caves, in our trees, or preparing for it quite soon. So similarly, don't fight that sense of, oh gosh, I just want to go to bed, it's only 9 o'clock. Go for it. Listen to what your body wants. And when your mind, if it does kick into, I have to, I should, I must, gently calm it, drop down to your heart and how you feel, breathe, and energetically tune in to what your beautiful being wants. Conversations with people in the family, with friends, with partners, with the children, include everybody as to what would be best, what would suit you best. so that the festive season is a joy. May all the blessing of the world be with you, whatever you choose to celebrate. Mille brichas, 1,000 thanks.